Okay, we're going to go ahead and get underway here this morning. My name is Justin Hill. I'd like to thank you all very much for attending our monthly GoldMine Tips and Tricks March Group webinar, especially the first day back after a holiday weekend. I hope your holiday was great. Mine was outstanding. Okay, today we're looking at a few simple things and a few not so simple things. How to set the default area code, by what you mean when you plug in a 7-digit phone number. How do we get the area code to default to where you live? We're going to look at how to customize the search center columns and how to do a couple other really cool things with our GoldMine Premium Search Center, things that the Search Center is not normally called on to do for us. We're going to look at using user groups, using time abbreviations when scheduling activities, and if we have some time, we're going to recap using read-only fields. Okay, so when we think about the default area code, when I just enter in a 7-digit number here, GoldMine knows that I live in the 315 area code. The reason it knows that is because I went into my tools, into my options, and into my telephony tab, and you change your local area code right here. GoldMine actually comes defaulted as 310, which I believe is Colorado or California, somewhere like that. You just go ahead and feel free to change that. This area code is a per user setting because we're in the options dialog. The options are always on a per user basis, so you can feel free to change that. Like for instance, if I lived in New York City, I could change that to 212. And I don't even think I need to restart GoldMine. Maybe I do need to restart GoldMine, but at any rate, there you have it. Tools, options, telephony. We can change the local area code right here. A restart is required. And actually, I'm going to skip over a couple items here because I want to get the little things out of the way first. Let's drop down to using time abbreviations. All I mean by that is when I go to schedule an item, it could be any item, and I go here to my schedule menu, typically to schedule an item, and if I schedule a call, let's say, I just want to show you that when I'm scheduling my date and my time here, I don't necessarily have to use this drop down. If I'm a big fan of keyboard shortcuts, keyboard strokes, which I am, I can go ahead and I can just put 8A and tab away. 8A knows it's 8 a.m. or I can do 11A and tab out 11 a.m. or I can do 2P for 2 p.m. tab out, and there's my 2 p.m. If you know military time, that works too. So 1500 will be 3 p.m. or 800 will be 8 a.m. so on and so forth. A neat little trick that you can use, because whenever I'm dealing with a GoldMine window, I'm typically just typing in my text. I'm using my tab key to tab around the window. Then I can just tab all the way through. There's my date. And incidentally, if I'm a big fan of the tab key and I don't like to use the mouse at all, I can actually bring up the pick lists for any field I want by hitting the F2 key. You see, that was just, I'm already in the date field. I just hit the F2 key here. These actually used to be called F2 lookups for precisely that reason. Another really handy thing to do when scheduling an item, kind of cuts this whole time abbreviation thing right out of the loop. What I actually recommend to my students is that whenever you're scheduling something like a call or an appointment, do so whenever possible from your graphical calendar, and there's a couple of reasons to do that. When I click drag out an item on my calendar here, and you'll notice that when I click drag an item on my calendar, it defaults to appointment. What's nice about the click drag is that GoldMine already knows what day I want to have that appointment on. It knows what time, and it knows how long the appointment should be, and it gets all that from that click drag. So again, if you're always in your calendar anyway, kind of get into the habit of just click dragging out items like that. If it doesn't need to be an appointment, you can certainly change the activity type, in this case to call, Our next action, reinforcing again that no matter what we're scheduling in GoldMine, you know, it's all kind of the same thing. It's all an activity. It has a reference, it has notes, it has a date and a time, a duration, and an optional alarm. Again, I find it much easier to schedule my items from the graphical calendar. You can do that on the week tab here, or from the daily tab here. Unfortunately, I don't think that we can do it from the month. No, we can't, unfortunately. But that's okay, because we normally live in the week tab anyway. Let's move on to using user groups. I realize we're kind of all over the place here today, a lot of different kinds of tips and tricks. We're going to tie it all together here with the Search Center here in just a few minutes. User groups, GoldMine user groups. This was actually something that used to be very big, very heavily used many moons ago when GoldMine was still running on DBase, not always on SQL. I'm talking about maybe GoldMine 5, maybe GoldMine 6, 6.5, 6.7. We don't see user groups used a lot anymore, and to be honest, I couldn't tell you why. They're an excellent way to kind of manage people, users, employees in GoldMine. So what am I talking about? Well, let's look at how to configure user groups. We're going to go to our Tools menu, and we're going to go down to User Groups. Now, what the user groups allow us to do, and I have a couple of test groups in here I'm just going to delete. A good example of a user group to have would be the sales group. So we're just going to create the sales group. And when we create a group in GoldMine, we have to actually go to this member setup here. And that lets us singly add users to our members list. So in this case, we're putting together a group which includes all of our salespeople. Excuse me. That's going to include Justin, Bob, maybe Jim. And now we have our sales group. Now, what can we do with our sales group? Well, the first thing that we can do is that, let's imagine that we're scheduling items for multiple users. So let's say that we have a very important client, that's Wile E. Coyote from Acme, still complaining about his rocket skates as usual. We're going to have a big conference call about it, and I'm going to send that conference call out as a scheduled meeting. So I'm going to go ahead and schedule a call. This is scheduled against Wiley. It's scheduled for myself because, you know, I'm the guy that's logged into GoldMine. I'm the primary user here. But we want to schedule this for all sales. And we can easily select all of our salespeople by going to our Users tab here, selecting Sales, and just double clicking, and it's going to add all of the salespeople on this scheduled activity. So what does that really do for us? Well, when I go ahead and I schedule this for tomorrow AM, and again I'm going to use my cute little shortcut, my 8A, for 30 minutes, looks good. Always give your call some notes. Never be bashful here. So now, because I scheduled that against more than one user, because you recall that I scheduled that item against my sales group, my GoldMine process monitor will come up, and it just wants to tell me that it's scheduled 3 activities. Because when you schedule the item against multiple users, what you get actually in the Clients Pending tab is you get a separate call for each user in the group. So in this case, if I'm on my calendar, I can see that product recall meeting tomorrow under my calendar. If I was Bob, I'd see it on my calendar, and if I was Jim, I'd see it on my calendar. Now, that's kind of neat. We're able to easily schedule items for multiple users. A couple other neat things that we can do in GoldMine with user groups. Probably the most important way to leverage these groups is when we're using read-only fields, because they kind of work hand in hand. So now that we have our sales group, we're going to create a sales field that we only want the sales staff to be able to see. So I'm going to take this product field right here. I'm going to change the name of it. How am I doing that? I'm holding down my control key. I hold down my control key. I double click the word product here. That opens up a kind of pseudo screen design mode. I can tell that I'm kind of playing with some stuff here because everything turns into boxes. And then I can, in this case, I can just select that field and I can move it around if I care to. In this case, I just want to change the name of that field. So all I'm going to do at this point is release my control key, double click the field itself. And in this case, I want to call it, we're just going to call this simply dollars. And we're going to imagine that this field represents the dollars that this client has spent year to date. Actually, we'll make that a little more descriptive. Again, that was just to hold down my control key, a double click, release control, double click again. I'm going to call it dollars Y to D. And a friend of you who have been playing around with your screen design, you'll notice that sometimes it kind of cuts off the left edge here. So let's go back into our screen design mode. An easier way to get there might be to right click here and go into screen design. Kind of hard to see, but we actually see a grid here when we're in screen design, and we can actually see this little designer toolbar here as well. I'm going to go ahead and double click my field in question, and if I go to the layout tab, I can actually increase the label size, and you'll see that when I do that, you can see the result immediately on the contact record. So I can kind of clean up the field label there, make it readable. Outstanding. So again, let's imagine that this is a dollar amount the client has spent year to date, and we only want the sales group to be able to see this amount. So the first thing we have to do is we have to set up read permissions on this field. So again, we have to go into our screen design mode. For those of you who are really interested to start playing with this on your own GoldMines, you will need to either be logged in as the master user, or you will need master rights. Either will work, but screen design is just a right click away. We're going to right click, go into screen design here. Now that we're in screen design, we can right click on objects and select properties. And in this case, we're looking at the dollars Y to D field. And we're going to the security tab. Now what we're able to do here on a per field basis is change